Just going to get right into it. Try to make it short and sweet. Those of you who know me know I can run my mouth for long periods of time, so I got to practice discipline as well. Yes, I got my zombie hat on today. We are out there hunting zombies. We are hunting the walking dead. They are asleep. They are under control of what I call the system, secondary matrix, or the hypnosis of life. Think about that. The hypnosis of life that puts you in such a state as to accept everything the system feeds you. It's another video for another time. Right now, I want to bring some clarification to some terms that are being thrown around. Some of them are useful terms, and I think we should know them as students of the light, healers, metaphysicians. And that would be a term called metabolic syndrome. And for some of you that are older, metabolic syndrome used to be called syndrome X. And I like syndrome X better because it has kind of a like a warning sign. X, you don't want to go there. And before I get into it, did you know that I can tell your health? I can tell your energy levels. Of course, I'm very empathic and intuitive, so I read energies. But you train yourself to do that. You can be trained to do that. Just by looking, I can tell your health by looking at your eyes, which is usually what I'll look at first, your mouth, your hands, and your feet. Let's go backwards. Just by looking at your feet, your hands, your mouth, and your eyes. Yeah, I can tell you what you have, what the diagnosis is, and how to treat it. And then we can go get it verified with the test. So, metabolic syndrome, what is it? It is a group of symptoms that are a marker for bad things to follow, like neurological disease, like polycystic ovarian disease, like sexual dysfunction, like vascular disease, like cardiovascular disease, like strokes, like cancer, like diabetes, like renal and kidney. Renal is kidney, like kidney disease, and of course, liver disease. Did you know that there is a portal system where the entire venous system of the GI tract, from the top of the esophagus all the way down to the colon and organs in between, meaning your spleen and your pancreas, all feed into this portal venous system? That means deoxygenated blood. And it dumps where? Directly into your liver. And you'll hear of things like mesenteric veins, this, again, from your GI tract. They have all kinds of, different names for it. What I don't like in the system is that they'll give us structure, and you'll memorize the structure, but you won't understand the function. They'll give you function of something, but they don't give you the structure. And so you never put structure and function together. And when you are learning something, and the best way to learn is put something in a conceptual framework first, and then add the details as you go. But if you can't put structure and function together, you're not going to be able to add those details, because you won't have the the conceptual framework. And it's one of the reasons why I say go to college, because it teaches you how to think, how to put things together, how to get tested, how to handle stress, how to deal with people. Now you go to college online, which kind of defeats the purpose. We got kids right now who can't handle themselves in high school. They got to sit at home and take classes online. Defeats the purpose. Socialization is part of education. Another video for another time. So let's go through the portal system. The important thing is everything from the GI tract is dumping into the liver for filtration and processing. That means your pancreas is dumping into the duodenum. It's alkalinizing juices or chemicals, along with its protein digesting. You see, here we got devils and demons, always disrupting every single time. You notice in the last video, idiot next door decides he's going to start firing up what? I don't know what the hell he's doing over there. But he keeps himself busy. But again, it's nonsensical busyness that leads to nothing. And not doing anything except making a mess over there and raising pigeons. But anyway, so I want you to understand what the portal system is. The venous drainage system that drains everything from the GI tract, including from the spleen, including from your, importantly, the pancreas, directly into your liver. Remember I talked about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease based on what? A toxin called sugar and polyunsaturated fatty acids, aka vegetable seed oils. There's no such thing as vegetable oil. It's vegetable seed oils that are highly processed and are not healthy for humans. And we already know that. You can go look it up. It's toxic. We know that sugar is toxic, especially that little rascal called fructose. And I've explained that in some detail. So let's go through the 5 criteria for syndrome X or metabolic syndrome. Number 1 is going to be obesity. But, you know, there are fat people who are quite healthy, and there are skinny people who are quite unhealthy. So just because you're thin does not mean you're healthy. And just because you're fat doesn't mean you're unhealthy. But when I talk about obesity, I am talking about a distribution of fat along the abdominal girth. So abdominal fat is dangerous. And I've talked a little bit about that. It is a reflection of visceral fat, and it is a reflection that you likely have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or the beginnings of. You cannot allow yourself to become significantly obese before you do something about it. So abdominal obesity, low HDL and high triglycerides. Let me explain that to you. This is why I haven't done the major video on fats yet, because it gets very, very complicated and I want to simplify it. So consider this part of that. HDL, considered the good cholesterol. LDL, considered the bad cholesterol. No, that's not really true. But for simplicity, let's consider that that's true. But LDL gets broken down into different species of LDL. And what is LDL? It is the low density lipoprotein versus the HDL, which is the high density lipoprotein. And what is a lipoprotein? It's just a fat carrier. Fats are insoluble in liquids, in water, i.e. your blood. And so it requires a carrier molecule. We call it a lipoprotein. And so lipoproteins can package up triglycerides and cholesterol and carry them throughout your body. Certain species of LDL, which I'm not going to get into until I do the video on fats in general, can become so small and so mutated that they end up into the cellular wall of your arterioles and your arteries, especially your coronary arteries, and that leads to heart disease and coronary events called heart attacks. So, and the sun is powerful today. So, high triglyceride, low HDL, abdominal fat. That's 3. Hypertension and some form of insulin resistance. I mean, they're going to tell you that if you have a fasting blood sugar over 100, that is part of syndrome X. I'm not a big believer in that, but I believe that you probably should be keeping your sugars in general from around 80 to 100. So, yeah, if you're fasting for, let's say, 12 to 14 hours, a lot of them will tell you come in at 8 hours. That's not correct. 12 to 14 hours of not eating is fasting. Then you go get your blood sugar checked. If it's over 100, then you got to be concerned. If it starts to get over 110, 115, you're getting to be pre-diabetic. Over 126 or so, they consider you diabetic, i.e. type 2 diabetes. So those are the criteria. Abdominal fat. Low HDL. And by the way, HDL to me, I mean, they say it should be over 40. I think for everybody it should be over 60. And the closer to 100 you get, the better. And that's why if you go to the doctor and you get a total cholesterol level, it's useless. That's practicing medicine in the dark ages. And yet a lot of your doctors are still practicing medicine in the dark ages. Why? Because they do not study the required 2 to 3 hours a day every single day of their lives if you're going to be a doctor in charge of people's lives when your call is a life and death situation. And it usually is, either in the short term or the long term. You got to be putting the work in, my man or my lady. Nurses, same with you. You need to be checking out the doctors. Anyway, let's get back to syndrome X. Yeah, we cannot be looking at total cholesterol. It's meaningless. We got to look at the subfractionations of cholesterol, HDL, LDL. We got to look at the triglycerides. What are triglycerides? It's what your liver does is take sugar, package it into fat, and then mobilize the fat when you need it as energy. So you'll go from triglycerides, and when you burn it, it'll come out in the form of ketones. But so they talk about an HDL, i.e. the good cholesterol, or no, let's see how they actually do it in the lab. They will do a triglyceride to HDL ratio, and that's actually a good a number that means something, because that can tell you the first stages of insulin resistance. From where? From your liver. Folks, again, structure and function. They do not give us structure and function together. That would make us too smart. We got to go get it on our own. Sometimes they give it to you, and then sometimes I'm talking about just general health educators and the education system in general. I mean, they teach you anatomy, like anatomy is something separate. No, we gotta have anatomy, we gotta have structure, we have function, kinesiology, etc. We even need to know why there's such a thing as a liver in the first place. That's how deep it gets. Anyway, so that ratio is good. Total cholesterol is useless. And then the last one will be hypertension. And how they define hypertension is also suspect. Because you can go into a doctor one day if you're the real nervous, worried type, if you're coming out of a stressful event, you had an argument with your significant other, right? Boss just called you and fired you. You're afraid of doctors because they ain't doing their job. And most of them ain't. Sad but true. Then you're going to have elevated blood pressure. And it's called labile hypertension, and it's quite normal because your body's kind of preparing for flight or fight. So it goes up. Your blood sugars also go up. A lot of things go up. Your corticosteroids go up as part of this. It's just a normal reaction. So your doctor tells you have hypertension. No, you got to come back on 3 different days, man, and that thing has to be elevated on 3 different days. And if anybody whose doctor tells them they have high blood pressure and they want to start them on medications, you go buy a high quality blood pressure cuff and take your own measurements and take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them over a week. And then if they're high, what they consider high, I consider high one over 130 over 90. Some say 140 over 90. The issue with blood pressure is not the gross numbers, but how they change. So let's say you're normally, for most of your life, your blood pressure has been 90 over, let's say, 60. Most people say, well, that's low blood pressure. No, for some people, that's quite normal. And then all of a sudden, 20 years later, you're 110 over 80 or 120 over 80, which the system still says is okay. No, for you, it is not okay. That is high blood pressure. So anyway, those are the 5 issues of syndrome X. Hypertension, low HDL, high triglycerides, elevated fasting sugar, and increase in your abdominal girth. Not your obesity, your fat on your belly. Ladies and gentlemen, because that is your visceral fat and it is a reflection of the state of your liver. So I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, how are we going to deal with that? I mean, we're going to cut sugars out of the diet. Then we're going to go after lowering processed foods. Then we're going to go after lowering starchy carbohydrates. And we're going to try and eat simple, good high quality meat, fish, and chicken, and vegetables. And drinking mainly water. Can you drink coffee? Yeah, organic coffee that you grind yourself. Can you have tea? Yeah. Organic teas that are low in these stimulatory theobromines. Well, they're out there. Chamomile tea, even green tea can be stimulatory, but it makes up for it because of the other chemicals it has in it. But yeah, there's a ton of herbal teas that you can have that are good for you. And I'll give you guys a quick primer one day on herbs. I mean, I have a degree in herbalism, and then I've distilled it down to maybe about 20 herbs that I consider super herbs. And I'll tell you how to use them, why you use them, and then you go do your research on those. But yeah, syndrome X or metabolic syndrome is a marker for bad things to come. And if you have 3 out of the 5 criteria, let's review it again. Fat on your abdomen, high triglycerides, low HDL, hypertension, and elevated fasting blood sugar. 3 out of the 5, you got syndrome X. I don't even want 1 out of the 5. Because if I get 1 out of the 5, I'm going into action. I'm not waiting for 3 out of the 5. And I'm certainly not waiting for 5 out of the 5. Okay? So I'll stop it here. Remember that total cholesterol is useless. Remember that the blood pressure that your doctor takes at his office is usually useless. Buy yourself a blood pressure cup. Remember that abdominal fat is a reflection of the visceral fat, i.e. a fatty liver, which means that you do have liver disease and it's about to get worse. Anyway, devils and demons are calling me. They don't want me to get this information to you, so they want to distract me every time I make a video. All right, I'm going to sign off so I can go ahead and take this call. All right, y'all. Peace out.